Okay, welcome back, Realty Pros. And we have Steve back with us again today. He shared with us last week um, on prospecting. And this week, he's going to be sharing with us comparative market analysis, using that in Bright. And so, Steve, you have the floor.
All right. To start off, I got a request of how do I update my expiration date for my license? So we'll cover that real quick and then we'll get into the subject. This is how you do it. Okay. Click your name, go into account and settings right here. Now in account and settings, License Association MLS. So 3 across, 2 down. And I'm not presently licensed, but at the top, you'll see your license number, your license type, expiration date, and license state. So this is where you would update your expiration date. Again, as I mentioned last week, Bright does not get this information from the state, so it's up to you to update your expiration date. But again, click on your name here, click on account and settings, and then it is located right here, License Association MLS. And then I'm assuming there's an edit button somewhere on here, because since I don't have a license, I can't see it, but I know these are the 4 fields. Okay.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's
You're
really
quite
simple.
welcome. Yes, it is, if you know where to click. All right, so let me do one thing real quick here. Just realized, there we go. So let's talk about, let me open up my PowerPoint here. And let's talk about creating a CMA in Bright MLS. I'm going to turn off my video. It gets a little distracting, I think, but there we go. My name, of course, is Steve Hoover. I was here last week. I do cover Anne Arundel, Montgomery, Prince George's, and DC, and joined Bright in March of 2019. So we're going to talk about the different ways to start an MLS, finding comps for your MLS, talk about adding custom displays, additional report options. It's pretty much what we're going to cover. I don't have to remind you, just make sure your contact information is up to date also. All right, so let's close this out and get started. Now, I break down, well, the first thing we're gonna, hold on a second. I forgot to mute my phone, so we don't need to hear that the whole time. There we go. There are actually 2 other CMA programs. I'm going to talk about the CMA program that everyone has access to. There is one other one. It is a premium product called Cloud CMA. If you're interested in learning more about it, it's an enhanced CMA. They do give you a trial period if you want to try it, but again, it is a additional cost for that CMA. There's also a basic CMA program in HomeSnap. So, which is useful if you're away from your computer, you're out in the field somewhere, you could do a quick little CMA there. But we're going to talk about the basic CMA that's everyone has access to with the basic service. Now, I break down CMAs into 3 types. The easiest one is in a subdivision of similar houses built about the same time by the same builder. You can get a lot of comps that way. A little harder, finding, or you're in a subdivision of similar houses, maybe different sizes, maybe different builders built different times. I mean, a little harder to do that one. And of course, the hardest one's a unique property. Nothing like it in the area. You really have to expand your search out pretty far. So I'm going to do the middle one, okay? And the method I'm going to show you is just one of the ways to find your comps. Then once we find our comps, I'll go into the procedure, and there's, that's all the same for everyone, no matter if it's a difficult or an easy CMA. Now, the first thing we're going to do is add the contact name to your CMA. And that's important because once you enter Once you add your contact name, that contact is connected to your CMA, and you'll be able to access your CMA from the contact. So if I click on contacts here, and I click on, say, Abe Lincoln here, you can see I've made one CMA for him. There it is. And actually at this point, you can edit, view it, email it, or delete it. You also can start a new CMA from here. Okay. So it's accessible from your contact. And let's say you're in the middle of adding your CMA and your computer crashes, the internet goes down, whatever, it's auto saved. So you can pick up, or if you didn't complete it, you can pick up where you left off from your contact itself. Now, there's also another screen here called My CMAs. And these are all the CMAs I've created. It's broken down by the address, which as you can see, I duplicated a lot, and the contact name here. And if I click on one of them in here, you'll see there's the property. It then allows me to edit, view it, email it, or delete it from here. And we can actually start a new CMA from here too. So 2 ways to start a CMA from your contact end, but I have a feeling most of you are going to start from the search screen. So that's where we're going to start. Okay. So again, there's multiple ways to find your comps. I'm going to use this method, and I'm going to actually put in the address of our CMA right here. And it's found it. There we go. Okay. So what else do you think I need? Statuses, of course. Coming soon active, definitely. Active under contract, definitely. Pending, yes. Closed, yes. Expired, yes. The other ones, you can decide whether you want to use them. I tend to skip these because I don't know why it's temporarily off the market or withdrawn, canceled. But it's up to you which ones you want to use. Bedrooms. All right. This property has 4 bedrooms. Obviously, I'm going to search that. Now, as far as bathrooms go, I tend to use total bathrooms. And I usually put in the minimum. So what is the minimum here? Well, minimum of 2 full baths. So I put in 2, but I put a, no, type it again. I put a plus next to it. And that way I'm searching for at least 2 full bathrooms. But if there are 3 full or 4 full, it'll find that. If there's 2, 2.5, or 2 full and 2 half, it'll find those. And of course, we can look at what we find at the end to decide whether we're going to use them. But I tend to put in the minimum here. Okay. Detached versus townhomes. I think it's important to select that because townhomes probably cost or value, worth less than detached properties. So what else do you think I'm going to use? How about above grade finished square footage? And I put in a range here. And this particular property, by the way, has 2,412 square feet. Okay. So I put in a range, and that way I can find similar size properties. Because of course, a 4,000 square foot property is going to be worth maybe quite a bit more than a 2,000 square foot property. Okay. Now, if you keep an eye down here, it shows 1 match. Well, we haven't selected the distance around this property yet. So if I go a half mile around, what do I get? 3 matches. How about a mile? We get 6 matches. Okay. That may be enough, but I'm gonna find out more. Let's put 2 miles. 11 matches. That's a possibility. Maybe I'll stick with that. What if I go 3 miles out? 31 matches. No, that's probably too many. Okay. Now, you aren't tied to what is in here. I put in 2. I'm going to use 2. But what if I wanted to do, say, 1 3/4 of a mile? You can manually enter that, 1.75. Okay, gives me 10 matches. I think I'll stick with that, actually. So you can manually enter a distance if it's not on the drop-down menu here. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to look on the map. Our subject property is the red dot in the middle. Our comps are around it. Okay. Here's our results. As you see, we have 2 active, some pending, closed, and 1 expired. Now at this point, I can look at what's here. All right. Does anything look really out of place? Crazy prices over here. You know, obviously the beds and the baths kind of are mixed as far as we're looking at. What else do you think I might want to do here? Maybe I want to look at the exterior of the property, because sometimes it's good to look at the exterior. That way you can kind of match up what you want similar to your subject property. Easy to do that. Change the display to agent thumbnail. Okay, so there's agent thumbnail. And now as we scroll down, we can look at each individual property and decide whether we want to use them or not. Now there's one here, no picture. Do I want to use that? I'm not sure. Maybe not. So what I'm going to do, I decide I'm not going to use this one. All right, no picture. We're going to click here. All right, so let's go back to Agent One line. All right. And I'm going to actually, you know what I might do? Remember we had 11 before with 2 miles. Let's add that extra one now. And let's look at it again. Okay. And again, I can't remember which one was the one without the photo, but we'll look at them again. Okay, there's the one without the photo. Of course, I hope that's closed, which it is because there's snow on the ground. Okay. And let's remove this one. So if I mark it here, when I go back to our Agent One line display, I know which one it is. So I can delete it here. Now, I'm going to use the ones we have here, but I'm not tied to these. I mean, I can add or remove some later on during the process of creating your CMA. And we'll show you where that is. Okay. But I'm going to stick with these 10. All right. Let's start a CMA. Once I selected them, click CMA here. And we'll start the process. And remember, the first thing I said was what? We're going to add a contact. Now, have I already created a contact? Possibly. Okay, could be an existing contact that I already have. In fact, let's do Sally today. And if I haven't, though, I can always create a new contact right here. First name, last name, email address is the only required entries for a contact. Now, there are certainly a lot more entries you can fill in, such as addresses and phone numbers, and even include notes down here. But we're going to stick with Sally here. Now, as far as the description goes, I would tend to put in the address of the property. That way you know what property this is. Okay. But please note down here, the CMA will be saved for 360 days from last modified date, then automatically deleted. Now, if you want to save it longer, you have to go in sometime during that 360 days and save it again, modify it, save it again. Then you're set for another 360 days. But a better way really is to generate a PDF of the CMA and then save it on your computer. And that way you'll always have access to it as a file, a folder in there. Okay. Okay, so we've started the process. We're going to go across all of these tabs. So next we're going to do pages. Okay. Now, first time through, we have no idea what pages we want to use. There are a lot of pages in here. So the first time through, we're going to add all the pages, and then we're going to look at them at the end. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to make our adjustments. We're going to remove some because I guarantee you there's some you're not going to want to use. And we can also resort them, put them in a different order if we want. So to add all the pages, I'm going to click all these subject titles. Okay. And as you see, when I click on them, there's a lot more pages embedded within the title than it looks like. All right. Now, later on, what we're going to do is we're going to remove what we don't want. And I'll tell you right off the top, I know there's 2 cover sheets. I know I'm not going to use the one without the border. So I'm just going to remove this. Highlight it, click the red X, and it is removed. Okay. And later on, you can move them up and down. Obviously, the cover sheet's going to be the first one. And then once we're done making our changes, we're going to click Set as Default. And that way, the pages we select finally will be the ones in the CMA, but also the same ones we will be using every time we go in to create a new CMA. So going forward, we'll be using the same pages. That way, you don't have to go through this process of reviewing them like we're going to do this time, every time you create a CMA. But let's talk about custom pages. Okay. Now you can add as many custom pages as you want. They just have to be PDFs. Okay. Now, one thing I made was a biography. I'm going to add that. Actually, I don't want to add it there. I want to add it at the bottom. Okay. And there's a reason for that. For now, I'm going to move it later. All right. But a biography. Why did I create a biography? Because there's nothing in here that talks about you. Yeah, your name's there, your email address is there, your phone number's there, your company name is there, but that's it. You got to sell yourself too on a CMA. Why are you such a wonderful agent? Why should I list with you? What has been your history in real estate? Whatever you want to put, plus company logos. There's no company logo in here. I mean, I'll have your company name, that's it, but no company logo. So you could put it all together in one biography. And again, the biography, 1 page. Okay, don't go crazy and make multiple pages. This isn't a resume, but just 1 page talking about it. And you'll see the one I put together, which I think is fairly simple but complete. Now you can add other pages. For instance, I added a home demand index. This was created back in May. We'll take a look at that. Okay, and see what that looks like. But how do you add custom pages? Right down here, manage custom pages. Okay, and I simply choose my location for my page. I have no idea what I have in here. Let's see, there is a PDF. There's a PDF here. You highlight it, you click open, and it will then upload that page to here, and then you'll have access to it. But you can also preview it if you want to. So let's preview the home demand index page I brought up. I click, there we go. And that's the page. And you also have the option when you're here to include a header or not, because there are lots of headers. Quite a few of these pages have headers on. We'll deal with that in a minute. Show you what I'm talking about. This is what it would look like with a header. Doesn't work on this page, does it? Because here's my header. So no, not going to use a header on that page, that's for sure. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and cancel that because I haven't added anything. So we're all set here. We have my biography, have the home demand index down there. All right, so let's go on to the subject property. So we have to add the subject property, the property we're doing the CMA for. And there's several options here for adding it. The first option says type in subject property fields manually. That's going to take you the most time. There's an easier way. And 99% of the time, there's an easier way. Okay, almost 100%. Let me explain. If you're listing a house, there's a very, very good chance it's been on the market before. Okay, if it's been on the market before, you can pull the old information from that old listing into the subject property fields. So it gives you a head start in creating your subject property. I mean, the bedrooms probably aren't going to change. The bathrooms aren't going to change. The address isn't going to change. So a lot of the fields will be the same. Now, obviously, you can change the other fields as needed, and then that's the easiest way to do it. Two things. Looking for an old listing, that's one thing. What if it was never on the market? Well, look for it and see if it was a rental. Because if it was a rental, that's almost as good. You can use that information and pull that information into the subject property instead. Now, let's say it's never been on the market, never been rented. Very good chance, of course, it's got a tax record, right? Because they've been paying taxes on it. You can use that information, pull the tax information. It's not as good as a listing, but it's got a lot of the basic information and it gives you a head start in filling this in. Now, I've already looked up the listing number. All right, it was already on the market. But if you haven't, you can always click here and do a search for it here. Okay, so that's one option. Or if you don't find anything there, you can always search the public records. However, I have already looked up the MLS number and I know what it is. It's in the memory. I've used this one before. So it's in my browser memory there. So you're going to enter the old listing number here and you're going to click fill and you'll see what happens. There it goes. It pulls in basic information here, pulls in the old photo, even the remarks. So you're going to go down here and you're going to check these. Do I need to change any of this information? Do I need to update it? And a lot of it doesn't appear in the listing, okay, even though it pulls it. But something like, where are we? Tax records, okay? This last sold, this listing was from 2017. You think the annual taxes have increased? Yeah. Do you think you need to update that? Probably. How do you do that? Well, you look up the tax record for this property. So let's say you're in here, and I'm going to give you a little, and I might have covered this last time too, but I think it's useful to go over this again. You're on a page on Bright, okay, and you want to go to another page. We want to go to the property tax records, but you don't want to leave here, although we could. Notice it has been auto saved as it says, okay. But I'm going to show you how you can stay on this page, go to another page in Bright, and get the information so I can come back here and fill in that tax information. Put your cursor on this tab at the very top. Right click your mouse. Okay, it opens up this menu. On the menu, you're going to go down to duplicate and we're going to left click on duplicate. Okay. So we have two identical windows open. Do it one more time, right click, go down to duplicate, left click, and now you open up a separate window. Okay. And this works for any page. It's a browser trick. It's nothing to do with Bright, but it works in Bright. They're identical, but separate. In other words, clicking Bright MLS, I can go ahead and do something else here. And then when I'm finished doing what I'm doing here, go back here and then continue where I left off. Okay. So we wanted to look up the public record for this. All right. So I'm going to put it in. We're going to search for it real quick. Okay, there it is. One match. That's probably it. Let's take a look. There it is. Let's open it up. Okay. So annual property tax now is $64.61. Try to copy it. $64.61. Okay. So I can go in here and update the tax information. I pass it. Must have. Where is it? Ah, there we go. Okay. So I've updated the annual tax. We know that is the current one. So we've updated that. Okay. So anything else we need to? Probably not. So let's go ahead and talk about the photo here. It pulled in the photo. You need a photo, you really do. You can take your own photo and upload it here. You can use the old photo if you want to, but you need something. Maybe you can find it on Google Street View maps and take a snapshot of that. As far as the remarks go, okay, in most cases I would clear remarks, because this is another agent's remarks about the property. Unless this listing was yours, maybe you want to keep it if it was your old listing. But otherwise, I'd probably clear it out, because again, it's another agent's remarks. I'm going to leave it though, so we can see where it ends up on the CMA. Okay. All right. Questions? Okay, let's go to cover. This is the cover sheet. Again, there's our photo. We can update that. Here is Sally, our contact information. And here is my information, agent information. And if I want to change it, I can certainly do that. And the reason I'm going to click edit my information, because I want to show you something here. CMA cover sheet, I can update this. If I need to change any field, I simply click the checkbox. It gives me access to the field. But I do want to talk about the header, okay? The header is going to show up on quite a few of the pages in the CMA. So you do definitely need to have your header set up. Now your header can have a photo or not, okay? It's up to you. You'll notice it'll have your name, your company's name, your phone number, your email address, okay? And if you want to include anything else there, you could. Title, perhaps. In fact, let's do that. There we go. And we can select a banner. All right. We have many, many banners here. As you can see, there are a ton of banners. And you can select any of those. Also, let's see, if you want to do a custom banner, you can upload a custom one. 1600 by 120. All right, and that really covers it. Okay, on here. So we're going to go back here and continue on. All right, so we're under our comps. These are our comps that we uploaded, right? At this point, we can keep them. We can remove them. We can add new ones. And again, I told you during the creation, we didn't have to stick with these if we didn't want to. So let's talk about how we would change it if we wanted to. If we wanted to remove any of these, you simply click the checkbox and click remove selected. Okay. If we wanted to add to this, add from listings, takes us to a search screen. We can find them and upload additional ones. If we want to add them from the tax database, add them from tax. Again, takes us to the tax search screen. We can add them from there. You know, and you might wonder, we talk about adding them from tax. In most cases, you're going to find enough comps in the MLS database for your CMA, but there may be occasions when, no, there are not, there's nothing in the database and you have to use tax records. So that's why we also give you that option. Last option is cart. Okay, add them from a cart. How's a cart work? Well, you create the cart and you put a listing or listings in it and it sits there essentially. And it can go through all statuses, updates, changes. It's going to sit there in the cart. So maybe a couple days ago, you found a property and you said, you know, that would be good for my CMA. I'm going to stick in the cart. And then when you get here, you can always add it from the cart. Okay. So that is add from cart. So those are your options. And let's continue on unless there's any questions on that. Map. Here's a map. Now there's our subject property in blue. Our comps are all the way around. Okay, we can see where they're located. Now, this map option would not be here if I hadn't added the map pages back here. So remember when we were back here and I added the map? If I hadn't added that, this wouldn't even be here. Okay, so just be aware of that. And let's talk about adjustments. Okay. Now, adjustments, this is an option. And I'm going to explain how it works and my opinion of it. Okay. Usually I use garage spaces, but they all have 2-car garage. All right. Let's pretend. All right. Let's talk about cooling type here. All right. Notice they all have central air, probably. And these two probably have ceiling fans also. But let's pretend. Let's say this Windy Harbor and this Hudie Drive only have ceiling fans for cooling. They don't have central air. So what do you think? They're going to be worth less, right? House with central air is going to be worth more than a house with just ceiling fans. So you can make an adjustment here. And by adjustment, what am I talking about? Well, if you don't have central air, the property would be worth how much less? Oh, I don't know. What's it going to cost to put in central air? 25,000, 20, 25,000, 50,000? I don't know. I'm not a contractor. I'm not an appraiser. I'm going to pull a figure out of the air though. I'm going to say $20,000. Okay, would cost to add central air. So what I could do here is add 20,000 to it. Now notice the price here. Sale price 555 has now gone up to 575. Now this is making that price compatible with our subject property, which has central air. And I do the same thing up here. Again, we're kind of pretending that these two properties do not have ceiling fans or don't have central air. They have ceiling fans for cooling. Okay, so we can make an adjustment here. Now these particular properties are now compatible, okay, with our subject property. They're similar, in other words. This is what they would be worth if they had central air. I'm sorry. Yeah, if they had central air. Here's a problem that I have. I pulled that figure out of the air. I don't know if it's 20,000. It could be 50,000. It could be 10,000. So here's what I would do. Unless you really know things like this, you're an appraiser. Yeah, you probably would know what it's worth. Builder may know what it's worth. Or somebody who's worked in this neighborhood for years and years and years and would know what it's worth. I would not make adjustments. Okay. I would leave these blank. And when I'm making my presentation to the seller, I would say, you know, that property on Clarion Drive, it's worth less than yours because it doesn't have central air. That's how I'd approach it without talking about numbers. Just saying it has it or it doesn't have it. Finished basement versus unfinished basement, that type of thing. Okay. But I wanted to show you the adjustments can be done. But personally, I would hesitate to use it. Talk to your manager, talk to your mentor if you feel like you want to use it or something. But I just say it's worth more or less without talking about figures because I wouldn't know. Okay. Question on adjustments. Okay, let's talk about pricing.
Before you go on.
Yes, sure.
Excuse me. So you can only add funding and add.
No, you can do it the other way too.
Oh, okay.
You can remove. So let's say for instance, let's say this second one, Cinnamon Greens Drive. Let's say it had a 3-car garage instead of a 2-car garage. Worth more, right?
Right.
So how much more? Let's say $10,000. All right. So to make it compatible, I take off $10,000.
Oh.
So you can do it either way. So now instead of 620, it's worth 610 to make it compatible with our 2-car garage comp. Now again, it does have 2-car. Usually I luck out when I get here and there's at least one property that doesn't have a garage or has one car garage, and I can easily explain it. Okay. But in this case, they're all exactly the same, which is what you really want. It makes it very compatible, but the adjustment is there. And again, you can, if it has something that your property doesn't have, you can minus it, okay, to make it more compatible. Or if it doesn't have something your property has, you can add to it to adjust the price. Okay,
All right, thank you.
sure. Good point. We can do it either way. Pricing. All right. So up here, it looks at the low, medium, average, and high price. Quite a range there. So again, when you're looking at your initial comps, you might say, this one's pretty high. It's probably not in the price range. You may not want to include it. Or maybe this one is too low. You might not want to include it. And the good thing is, you can always go back to our comps and we could make adjustments at this point if we decided to remove something or add something here. Okay, so we can always change that here. Now, as far as the other information, it says cannot calculate a price based on above grade finished square footage because the subject property doesn't have that value. All right. Now, that might be useful to try to figure out what this property is worth. And what it does is it looks at the square footage of your property, looks at the square footage of the closed sold properties, does a calculation and comes up with a dollar figure. All right. It can't do that because there's no above grade finished square footage for this property. What am I talking about? Let's go back to subject property. All right. Above grade finished square footage, there wasn't any in the listing. Here's the good thing though. Where can we find that? How about in the tax record? Above grade finished square footing is in the tax record, and there it is. Total, that's total. Let's find the above grade finish. There it is, above grade finished square footage right here. 2412. And guess what? We can now put that back here. Above grade finished square footage. We can add it in. I'm going to paste it in there. Okay, now we have a figure, and guess what? When we get to pricing, it can calculate it now. Okay. Now let's talk about this above grade finished square footage price though. Is it going to sell for what it says, $584,915? It may not, but it's just another factor to help you to figure out what this property might be worth, what it might sell for. I personally, when I was an agent, I would not, square footage was another factor. Square footage may be great for brand new construction because that's pretty much blocked in, but for resale, not as important as the comps you find. Similar properties, similar sizes, they can be, 100 square feet more or less, whichever, to figure out the price. So I'm just going to pull a figure out of the air. Down here, suggested list price. You could put in the suggested list price. You could put in a range, for instance, if you want. So that's what we're going to do. I'm looking at 585. So let's say list price between, let's say 585. Actually, you can put it in dollar sign. 585 to, how about 595? Okay, so we can place that in there and continue on, and we can add notes if we want to. Don't have to, we can leave it blank. So let's go down to finish. Okay, so we finished our setting up our CMA, and now what can we do? We can actually email it directly from here if we wanted to, but of course we want to view it first because we want to see what is in here because we're going to make adjustments. We're definitely not going to use some of these pages. So we're going to generate the CMA. And by the way, that is where you generate the CMA from, right here, if you want to save it later. Because of course, a PDF, we're going to create a PDF of this. Of course, a PDF can be saved And actually, you have two options here. You can email it directly from Bright, or view it as a PDF, save it, and attach it to your own email. You don't have to send it directly from Bright. Okay. So here is our our cover sheet for our CMA. I'll get it right. And this is the first option. CMA price adjustments. Now I like the layout. See, here's our subject property. These are our comps, and you can compare them side by side. Those are our two actives. However, down here, it talks about adjustments. We didn't make any adjustments. All right. So unless you make adjustments, no, I wouldn't use this page. But the good thing is, if you like the page, there's ones later on look exactly like this without the adjustments. So we'll still be able to use it. They just won't show this information at the bottom. All right, so this is the second page. Subject property always on the left, comps to the right. Again, compare them side by side, makes it nice and easy. Third page, fourth page. Okay, there's our house in the snow. And we have some statistical information. There's quite a few statistical pages in here. You can decide which ones you want to use. I probably wouldn't use this unless I made adjustments, because down here it talks about the adjustments. And we didn't make any. There's our subject property, okay? There's our remarks. Remember I said probably remove those. And if the remarks are long, they're gonna end up on page 2 anyway. They weren't long on this one. All right, this is an analysis, can be summarized as, okay, list price between $532 and $699. And 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 full baths. It basically kind of gives you a summary of the properties that you selected. Days on market for your comps. How many days were they on the market before they went under contract, as you can see, or they're under how long they've been on the market. Most of them pretty much, except for these two up here, looks like about 10 days at the most or less. Price graph, list price in blue. The reddish is the sold price or closed price, and you can compare them. Now we only have 3 closed properties, and that's why you see these here. And this one looks like closed for 100%. It was over 100%, and that was way over 100% versus list price. Now we have something called CMA Pro Report. These are our comps again. However, they do include the remarks. Are the remarks important? Maybe. If you like this display, this is another display that you can give your client, which shows the comments. Now you might note, sometimes there's 1 per page, sometimes there's 2 per page. It really depends on the size of the remarks. If they can fit 2 on a page, they will. If not, there's only 1 per page. And then this particular report has additional statistics. Here's a couple graphs. Here are our 2 active properties. And actually you can see they've been on the average days on market 4 days, haven't been on the market very long. Here's our closed properties, okay? They were on the market an average of 8 days before they went under contract. Here's our expired listings. Now, it was only on the market 8 days, not real long for it to expire. So you wonder, would you use this? How important is this one? I'm not sure. Why it was only on the market 8 days? You know, when you consider what a normal listing period is, probably what, 3 months or something. Here's our pendings. Our 4 pending properties, they were on the market an average of 14 days. And then we have some average, minimum, maximum prices. There's some additional statistical information down here for each one of those. And brief summary of listings. Now, there's another statistical program here called Results Statistics. I personally like this one. Let's look at the closed properties down here. We have list price, closed price, concessions, close date, list price to close price percentage, and days on market. Remember that one graph that was really, really high? There is almost 111% list price to close price on the market 7 days, okay? But also note, concessions, $12,200. This one had concessions of $15,000. Okay. So if you'd like this display, actually, you can get this display without running a CMA. I'll show you how to do that at the end. Okay, but you can easily get that display without doing the CMA. All right, here's our pricing recommendations. Okay, it's calculated here, closed price statistics, average, high, medium, low, and then square footage. And then down here, remember I put in 585 to 595? It added this wording, okay? Wording was automatically added after analyzing your property, comparable properties on the market now, recent sales and comparable properties that failed to sell. I conclude that the current market, your property is most likely to sell for between 585 and 595. All right. And of course, you could put in a single figure here instead if you wanted to. And then there's some disclaimer information here. All right, continuing down, 4UP public records report. Looks like that early one, right? Subject property here, comps here. But this data is from the public records, not from the MLS. And again, why would you use this if you have all that information from the MLS? Maybe you couldn't find anything from the MLS and you ended up using a lot of public records. And then I'd use this display. Okay, now we have the 4UP CMA 4UP listings report. Looks like that last one almost, except this is MLS data. Okay. Also, remember the first pages that came up? This is exactly the same ones, but they don't talk about the adjustments you did not make. Okay. So this is the one I mentioned. If you didn't make adjustments, I'd use this one if you like this display and want to use this display. All right, now we get into what I call some educational slides for your client. Activity versus timing. You put a property on the market, when is the most activity? That first week, as you can see, here's the activity. Here's the first weekend and the first 7 days, and then they peak right at the end of the first week. And then what happens? Then the activity starts dropping off. 2 weeks on, 3 weeks, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this really tells your client activity going to be right at the beginning. That's when you have the most activity, which of course means you got to price it right. And let's talk about pricing. Okay, the effects of overpricing. On an average, properties that go under contract in less than 4 weeks, the difference between list price and close price is about 2%. Properties, and of course, this is average. As you know, we've had some crazy, a crazy period when things were selling for more than list price. I think that's slowly going back to normal with the interest rate hike, but this is an average. But it's still informative because it does say, hey, 4 to 12 weeks on the market, difference between list price, close price, 3.5%. 13 to 24 weeks, 5.5%. More than 24 weeks on the market, that's almost 6 months. You're talking about a difference of close to 9% between list price and close price on an average. Benefits of using a professional realtor. You're all members of NAR. You're all, what's the benefit? The knowledge you have of pricing, marketing, security, negotiating, and closing. Okay, market analysis. How'd you come up with those properties? Well, you looked at what was for sale, what recently sold, what failed to sell. So this is just a short explanation of how you selected the price, the properties you did for your comps. The importance of pricing at market value, percentage of buyers, 60%. But if you overprice it, 10%, you're going to cut down on the percentage of buyers. Now, as we go through some of these particular slides, if you can't explain them, don't use them. Okay, you don't want to have it in your CMA and then they're going to say, well, what does that mean? Okay, if you can't explain it, just delete them. Seller's desired price. They always want to get, they want to, list it up here. The buyer doesn't want to pay that much. They want to pay as little as they can. So you have to establish a happy medium and market value. Okay, here's another one talking about market value and months on the market. Now I kind of like this. Where does commission go? Because you're probably going to have a net sheet, and the net sheet's going to say, well, you're going to have to pay this much money for commission, be thousands of dollars. And they think, wow, you're making all that money. I'm giving you all those thousands of dollars. And as you know, you don't get it all. Even though you want to keep it all, you don't get it all. You got to split it with your broker. You got to split it with the other broker. You got to split it with the other agent. This kind of explains the split without going into dollar figures or percentages. It's another one I like, steps to a positive showing. What's important? How do you get the property up to showing level? The importance of first impressions, cleanliness counts, less clutter, repairs need to be made, little things that count, pulling it together. So, you can suggest, hey, you need to do some painting, you need to clean up clean up things a bit, less clutter. It's written down here for your client so they can look at this and they can kind of follow this as a guide. Why? Because of showings. What does it take to show? Scheduling of showings, timing of showings, any special instructions. What do you do about the pets? The showing itself, privacy, contact information, previews, and unscheduled appointments. Explains the showing process. There's our map. There's the biography. And again, I was able to incorporate a photo, a company logo, address, a little paragraph talking about myself, any specialties, areas I serve, that type of thing. So again, biography I think is important. One page, don't go crazy, okay? But sell yourself, that's the purpose of this. And there's our home demand index. Again, this is something you could share with them if you find this interesting. Anything you think that's important in Bright, we have a lot of data up there, a lot of information. You can always convert it to a PDF and include that, okay? Now, what do? You went through, you saw pages that said, no, I'm not using that, right? So we're gonna go back to pages here. And we're gonna make our adjustments, including getting rid of price adjustments. I'm not using that. So I highlight that, I'm gonna click gone. The public records report, no, not using that. That one is gone. My biography, no, I don't want it at the end. They might miss it. I want it at the very top, right after the cover sheet. So once you make your adjustments here, you're gonna click set as default. And that way, going forward, anytime you create, and including with this one, once I set that, I can go back to finish and print it out again with the order I want and the pages I want. But then going forward, these are the pages you're going to get every time you create a CMA, unless you want to change it. So it means you don't have to go through this process every time. Okay, just the one time. Okay. You have any questions on that? Okay, I promised to show you the results statistics and how to get those, just to refresh your memory. Oops, went too far. These are the results statistics, okay? You wanna get these, you could say this is a short CMA, almost, okay? So I'm gonna bring up some properties. In fact, here are our properties. There we go. Our comps are here. And if I wanted to run, I did my search, I selected my properties. Right here, see where it says results stats. It's the same form with a slight change I'll tell you about. It's a PDF. The only change is these nice little icons across the top. We've updated those, but other than that, it's the same display we saw on the other page. Let's go down to our closed listings. We had 3 of them. There we go. List price, close price, concessions, close date, percentage of list price to close price, and days on market. So there's a quick CMA. You have somebody into statistics. You can get it really quick and easy by running a search and then clicking results stats right there. Okay. Questions? And that's what that's what it says, questions. Of course, the support center, available 7 days a week. There are the hours. Here's the toll-free number. And if it's off hours or you don't need an immediate answer, you can always email them at support@brightmls.com. There is my email address if you would like to get a hold of me. And that is the final slide, unless we have questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you very much for all of the tips and the insight, and it's a lot. And so I'm hoping that all of our Realty pros will take advantage of this. And so whether you have a listing or not, or whether you have a buyer or not, because you can use this CMA in
And
both
right,
instances. Yes.
correct. Buyer or
Yes.
seller, you can use it. You just
Mhm.
customize it for one or the other.
Exactly. And so, you know, even if you don't have a client that you're working with right now, this is the time to be able to go in and just kind of play around with it, set up your template so that when you do, I apologize, I accidentally muted myself. Set up your template in the Bright so that when you do have a client, you won't have to go through that process. You'll already have it set up. You'll know what it looks like and what you're going to be presenting to your client, whether it be a seller or a buyer. So this is a lot of good detailed information as far as setting up a competitive market analysis. Thank you again, Steve. We really do appreciate you coming.
My pleasure.
Sharing with us today. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Is there any other questions? I know Steve asked, but I just want to make sure that no one has any questions about the training from today.
So I, as usual, have a question about mapping. You've done this before when you've given us a lot of information on how to actually map the area that you want to look at for your comp. And
Up here.
sometimes it's really easy to do that.
Okay, well, good. Is there a question with
The
that?
question is, so can you, do we have enough time to do one of those? Because every time I try to do it, I'm like, now, what did he say?
Mapping is actually, let's see, let's go back here. So if you want to use the map search, okay, you can enter an address here, or maybe let's talk about location. Let's say you're looking around the Greenbelt Metro station. So I could put an address in. Either way, it's going to have to find it. You know how Google Maps search, you starts typing and it finds the address, and then you click on it. Okay. So this is the area it's checking in. And then as far as distance around, you can just decide how far around you want to go. So if we want to look at 1 mile around the Greenbelt Metro station, we can click there. If we want to go 1.5 miles around, there is no 1.5 miles, right? But we can put that in manually. 1.5 miles.
What if you, oh, okay.
So then if I click map, there we go.
So you do it that way, so click map. And you can change the shape of the map.
Sure, once you're here, I can actually put my cursor on the line, get that little hand there, hold down my left mouse, and just drag and drop it where I want it, release it. There we go. Now at that point, that's one shape. If I want to do more than one shape, then I have to be at the maps.
Mhm.
So then I would draw my own map here. Okay, by clicking there.
Thank you.
Or use any of the other shapes.
Mm.
So yeah, when you're here, you only have one map, one shape to do. And of course, that's what I started my CMA from here. That doesn't mean you have to start a CMA here. Maybe it's a subdivision or neighborhood of similar properties, similar houses, and you just put in a subdivision name. And that's where I'd start. I probably wouldn't even use a map unless I got overwhelmed number of properties. Then I might want to say, okay, let's just select the ones closest by, something like that. So for instance, let's start over. Let's say I'm searching in Calverton. Whoops, got to spell it right. Calverton in Prince George's. It's actually where I grew up a few years ago, many years ago, actually. It's been a few years since I lived there. But there's actually, we could do, so you could actually, well, I'd need to put in a few more specifics, I think.
Oh.
Calverton, detached, 4 bedrooms, 2+ baths. Okay, why am I getting? Oh, no, that's right. Why am I getting no matches here?
Steve, I thought you said that Prince George's County doesn't use the subdivision neighborhood. We have to use the legal subdivision.
Only in public records.
Okay.
Okay, but you can certainly use it here. Subdivision neighborhood, Prince George's County. Now, why am I? Unless there's
I haven't
nothing
been
for
successful
sale.
using it there either.
Okay, let's see. Well, I did.
Oh,
I
I
selected
see
all
you have.
statuses. Let's see what we get.
You got 7.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, nothing. Well, there's a coming soon, and the rest are under contract or whatever. Not a whole lot going on there. Okay, but yeah, I mean these were all built pretty much the same time, and they're similar properties, similar houses, but there's really nothing on sale right now, really. Oh, one expired and a
Temporary off market.
temporarily off market. Interesting. So yeah, in this case, I would probably search subdivision and use that. Except again, there's not a whole lot you can find there. You might have to expand your search off a little further to do that one. But
Okay.
yeah, they were all built back in the 60s.
Okay. So we see that there is some additional training that we can have Steve to come in and help
Have I
us
done
with.
have I done a tips and tricks?
You have, but it's been a while since you've done
Okay.
the tips and tricks.
Yeah, there's a whole lot in tips and tricks. And that would be useful and I think helpful to explain how all this works in different ways to do that. And I also go over how to use the map and change this display. If you don't like the agent one line, hey, you're not stuck with this. You can always change this. So that's part of the tips and tricks. That would probably be useful.
Excellent. We'll add that back to the calendar.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Steve. As always, this was exceptional. Go ahead, Anita.
Thank you again. And also, so before we close, because I know that we are over by just a bit, we also wanted to welcome our new agent, Tony Gibson, to Porterhouse. Welcome so much. And we are glad that you were even able to join us this afternoon in Realty Talk.
Welcome, Tony.
Welcome, Tony.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to
Thank
go
you,
ahead
everybody.
and I'm going to stop the recording.